Hello everybody, good day to you guys. Welcome back to the channel. So this video, I'm not working on cars right now. It's a Friday, we're into the week and I'm trying to button up everything in the shop, but I wanted to do a follow-up video about the GM recall on the 6.2 liter V8s that is blowing up in the, I think the Tahoes, the Sierras, the Suburbans, the Silverados, the Yukons, and the Escalades. I think that's the primary product line that's suffering from this engine issue. And I've got a copy here of GM's latest recall update. I actually think this is the third update because after they issued the first recall protocol and told us all to just change the oil to 40 weight oil and that would fix it, that procedure only lasted about 4 days, and GM immediately said that that was not going to work out for them and they changed it. So they issued one recall after that one, I believe, which only lasted about a day and a half, and now we're on to the next revision. So I want to go over it with that, or I want to go over that with you, considering that a lot of the audience does have some of these affected vehicles, and the questions are non-stop in the comments and in the emails about what people need to do about it. So let's go over this other recall real fast, and we're going to talk about the update. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. We've got GM recall number November 252494002. That 2, I guess this is second iteration. Maybe they just fully withdrew the first one. This relates to the L87 V8 engine. That's the 6.2 liter, and they're calling it loss of engine propulsion. Now, I would call that loss of rotating assembly, because what's happening is these engines are ejecting crankshaft and connecting rod pieces out of the sides of the blocks through newly created inspection ports. All right, now it's time for the fine print. Just below our recall number on this document, this is a GM document. You see it right there, there's our logo. You know, the old logos used to look better. Anyway, there's an intention to all selling dealerships. They're stating that it is a violation of federal law for a dealer to deliver a new motor vehicle or any new or used item of a motor vehicle, including a tire, covered by this notification under a sale or lease until the defect or non-compliance is remedied. Now that's a preemptive statement because it goes on to say that vehicles involved in this recall were placed on a stop delivery until April 24, 25. Under the N254-249-4000 recall. So I guess that is version 1. And then the 4001 designation was version 2, and then this here is version 3. So all vehicles affected by the 4000 version, those are still under a stop sale, and this is also included under a stop sale. So they didn't change anything regarding whether they're allowed to release these vehicles or not. It goes on to say that certain VINs have been moved to the open status in this bulletin after being identified as requiring an engine replacement. So we're moving towards changing engines. Additional VINs may be opened as they are identified. I assure you those VIN numbers are already identified, but we can't open all those VIN numbers to this recall because then everybody is going to jump in and try to get this recall done at the same time. There's only a limited supply of engines. I mean, realistically, they ran out of 0-40 in 24 hours. So yeah, if there's no oil, there's definitely no engines. It's important to know that the remedy solutions for this recall are VIN number specific. So the vehicle builds based on their VIN numbers are where we're getting the pool of affected vehicles from. The VINs are assigned to one of 3 bulletins. This is, of course, number 3. We are to investigate vehicle history in the GM Global Warranty Management System, and we must always be checked to confirm vehicle involvement and must always be in the open status. So if it's a closed VIN number, we're not allowed to do the recall. If I were a GM person, like GM technician or a GM dealership. So if it's a closed status on the VIN number designation, they cannot do the recall. It says, do not use the service information with the VIN search as it will not verify VIN eligibility for field action. So this is mostly in-house warnings to the dealerships, not so much the consumers. Anyway, all involved vehicles that are in dealer inventory must be held and not delivered to customers. So even if they're prepaid and sold or ordered, they cannot have them. The dealer traded or used for demonstration purposes until the repair containing this bulletin has been performed. So these things are pretty much now parking lot queens are not allowed to do anything. Can't buy them, can't sell them, can't trade them, can't deliver them, can't do anything with them except put engines in them. The next bracket down on our list here covers the affected vehicles identified so far. We're looking at Cadillacs, Chevrolets, and GMCs. That's the Escalade truck, Silverado 1500, not the 2500, because those are equipped with the 6.6 liter gas engine or the 6.6 liter diesel engine. Do not confuse the two. It's not the same engine. They're completely different, but for some reason we designated the next V8 gasser as a 6.6. It's awfully suspicious how that 6.6 designation can sometimes cause some confusion amongst the uninitiated, because 6.6 has always been synonymous with the Duramax, which has been the sought after engine, and having a cheaper gas engine, I almost wonder if that confuses people to make a purchase and they don't know the difference. Regardless, that's just a little fleeting thought that I had. Back to the Chevrolet lineup outside of the Silverados, we're dealing with the Suburbans and the Tahoes. The GMC lineup, which is about the same as the Silverado, that's the Sierra 1500. And of course the Yukon and Yukon XL are going to be a similar platform as the Suburban and Tahoes. So all of those vehicles from 2021 until 2024 are the affected units. Now we move on to the condition that has caused the recall. This is what GM has identified. General Motors has detected that a defect which relates to motor vehicle safety may exist in certain 21 through 24 Cadillac Escalades, blah, 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 blah. So we already know that. The connecting rod or crankshaft engine components in these vehicles may have manufacturing defects that can lead to engine damage and engine failure. If the engine fails during operation, the vehicle will lose propulsion, increasing the risk of a crash. That's why we have a loss of propulsion, and this is a safety recall. Uh-oh. Now, that was a lot of fancy verbiage, so let's break it down a little bit. So basically, the engines are not built very well. The rotating assemblies have some kind of a defect, and the engines are blowing up and shutting off while driving. Blowing up, kind of being a loose term, they cease to function as a mechanical unit. So the metallic pieces are coming apart, they're failing, the oil is not protecting the pieces from slamming into each other, pieces are coming apart, excessive heat's being created, we're losing bearings, and then the engine fails internally. That's what's happening. And I think we can prove that. So take a moment to review this excerpt from the I Do Cars YouTube channel, because Eric, in fact, does have a 6.2 in his shop right now, and here it is.
Yeah. The moment we have all been waiting for. There's number one rod bearings. And I would call this significant wear for the miles. This is, you're not supposed to see this. This looks like a 250, 300,000 mile engine, but this has less than 50. It's through the first layer of metal. And this is mirrored in, well, these are gone. It's mirrored in every single journal. Some of them are worse than others. This one has a groove in it. It's not supposed to look like this. Torn down a lot of engines, and if you showed me these bearings, I'd say, well, since I know they're not out of a BMW engine, this is probably a 200,000 mile plus vehicle, and it isn't. On to the rods. Well, you can definitely tell this pair is cooked. These got hot. To turn that color, there's a ton of friction, a ton of heat. And it likely, what probably happened is it locked the engine up. You're not hiding that. And you can see it returns to normal for the rest of the connecting rods. The main bearings, now this is the front of the engine, that's the back. They all have some damage, particularly this shell right here. So these are out of the caps, and these are out of the block. That's not good. This rear one has some damage as well. It's all the way through the coating. It was clear that it spun some bearings. The bearings fused to this. Tons of copper here. Now this may clean up a little bit, but I am completely uninterested in trying to save this crank.
I understand it's happening without warning, no rhyme or reason. It's just an occurrence that once the engine no longer can tolerate the internal stresses of the defect, things go kaboom. That's what's happening in a nutshell. It's funny though, the last recall mentioned 877,000 affected units, and this one does not give us a number, but the units are still there. Okay, so this next section here, this is basically just the parts breakdown on what's going to be required in order to perform an engine replacement. We've got some belts, some seals, some bolts, some gaskets, retainers, some more seals, some more gaskets, another seal, more bolts, more gaskets. So everything that we touch has to be thrown away. Fuel pipes. We got another seal kit for ejectors, O-rings. We're back to 020 oil. See that right there? Looks like the EPA got a little PO that we tried to use 40 weight. Back to 020, that's what they say. We're no longer supposed to be using the 040 weight, we're back to 020. Now, I understand that the user manual on those same engines in different areas of the planet, they are authorizing a 040 weight all the time. So I'm wondering why we're just using 20 weight. I know the answer and you guys know the answer, but I find it unfortunate that we're going back to that super thin oil. Anyway, they've got us putting in a few gallons of coolant. We're changing an oil cooler hose, and there's 4 different radiator options. I bet that's fun. Yeah. Okay. Reminder, all the parts are non-returnable. Dealers should review the affected parts to confirm we're in management status. This is not relevant to us. Down here, this is not exactly relevant to us, but I'll talk about it anyway. Whenever you do a warranty job at a dealership, there's going to be a labor code assigned to that particular type of job. And that labor code has a flat rate pay amount designated behind it. It's going to be in hours. So for example, this job pays 18.3 hours if we have this option code and it's 2-wheel drive. If it's a 4-wheel drive without that option code, it still pays 18.3. With option code, it pays 18.4. So we're kind of splitting hairs a little bit. Just make it 20 hours, have a nice day. But anyway, those are all the labor codes that you have to enter into your warranty claim in order for GM to pay the participating dealer, because the dealerships are not the manufacturer. They just sell the manufacturer's product, so it's really not the dealership's fault. So don't be mad at the dealerships because GM built blowing up engines. Words. Anyway, to avoid this, none of this matters. Here's some money, blah blah blah, no one cares. Okay, moving on down here. Here's how we determine which engines are affected. So we're going to use IVH, vehicle history. We're going to check to ensure that the vehicle that I'm working on has not already had an engine replacement. So if it's been replaced, that's an issue. If the vehicle is out of warranty and does not show engine replacement in IVH, verify with the customer that it has not been replaced. So they want us to ask the customers if they've ever had the engine replaced prior to being notified about this recall. For example, someone could own one of these, the engine blew up, they don't deal with the dealership, they took it to a shop said, hey, your engine blew up, they sell them an engine. Well, then these customers find out later on that there's a recall on it, so they may have grounds to seek compensation for the engine that they had to pay for. Anyway, it goes on to state that if the engine has not been replaced, proceed down to step 2, okay? So step 2, okay, if it has not been replaced and it fits within the VIN numbers, replace the engine. Okay. After we replace the engine, we're supposed to take the original 020 oil cap and put it on the new engine, then fill the new engine with the same old 020 oil. Got it. So no more 040. Okay, backing up just a little bit, the image above is describing to us how we qualify the engine based on its build date. So what we're looking at is the sticker of an L87 6.2. That sticker is going to be located under the driver's side cylinder head above the exhaust manifold. And it's basically telling us that if the engine was built, let me back up, 2024, that's the build year. And then this right here indicates the day of the year that the engine was built. So if the engines are built on or after the 183rd day of 2024, no further action is required. So even with a VIN number and a year, make, and model, they can't qualify the engine replacement until we see the sticker on the engine. So anything built before June 3rd maybe of 24, those engines are affected. The ones built after the 183rd day of 2024, those are going to be okay. So it appears that they have solved the manufacturing defect during production midway through 24. Some more federal law warning, we don't care about that. This right here is all of our responsibilities set forth to the dealership from the manufacturer. You can pause and read this if you wish. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Scroll past a little bit so you guys can see what we're doing here. Yeah, they have a reimbursement plan. Okay, so basically we have retracted everything we said previously in the first recall about engine oil. All right, you guys, check this out. This video is from one of the viewers on the channel here. His name is Derek. He operates Garage Monkey Mechanics here on YouTube. It's his second channel. He shut down his first one a long time ago, I understood. So he's rebuilding a new one. If you guys want to subscribe to a GM Tech, just check out Derek at Garage Monkey Mechanics. But we're going to use his video real quick because I don't have a 6.2 in the shop, but he does.
You guys ready?
So check this out.
Look at this right here. L87 6.2 manufacturing date. Year 22, sometime in February.
Okay.
This one did not seize up, but still had rod failure. So we're going to take a look inside. I got the pan separated already.
So we're pulling that pan down.
This is first look for me.
That's the engine oil level sensor right there, I think.
Bear with me.
It's all the nasty.
Seeing anything. Oh, let me go get a light. All right, there's some metal shavings in here. We're gonna take this windage tray off too.
Metal in the pan. This is what we're looking for. Here's the good stuff. Let me show you this.
Definitely right here, thrust bearing. Yeah. All right, got the windage tray out too. You see some
more chunks of metal.
Chunks in there.
It's all bearing material in there.
Looks like we only have a thrust bearing. It's gone.
So that one lost the thrust bearing.
We're going.
That's the one that keeps the crank from walking forward and backwards inside of the block.
Yeah. So these are the
I'm looking for a
failures that are happening.
Discolored connecting rod. I've seen videos where those connecting rod caps were pause this. I've seen videos where those connecting rod caps were blue and the crankshaft was blue due to the friction from the bearing rod and crankshaft.
Another tech walked in.
I'll check out his other video in a second on this. There's one more on a different 6.2.
It's his vehicle anyway.
He said this one drove in, the other one did not.
GM wants all this stuff back so they can rebuild the core, and we shall oblige.
Yeah, we need all those one-time use bolts back.
Lord knows they need it. So we can get these things fixed and back on the road.
Okay, here's another one.
Jackpot.
This one, I think, burnt up the rods. It's bottom of the pan.
Yeah.
Bunch of metal. There it is.
7 and 8 are all burnt up.
Look at it right there, blue.
Like
all that blue right there.
Crank. Those bearing probably. Yeah.
And I think there was another one on this video. Yeah, there it is. That one. Cooked.
Oh, let's get it.
Other side.
Oh, yeah.
See the discoloration?
Oh yeah, it's broken.
She done.
Wow.
Okay, so what does all this kind of mean, and especially what does it mean for you? Basically, what it means for you is if you've got one of these vehicles with that engine in it, and you fit the criteria, which most of them do, then GM owes you an engine. So if you've gotten the recall notice in the mail, or even if you haven't, call up your local dealership, tell them you've got a vehicle that's possibly affected by the recall, and you want to know when you can get on the schedule to have the engine replaced. Realistically, the next question I think for folks is, can I drive the car? I gotta tell you what, if I knew my engine was at risk of blowing up, I would not put my wife and kids in the car, period. I just would not do that. I would not put their lives at risk on an inconvenience. And yes, this is a massive inconvenience. It's an inconvenience for nearly 1 million people. There's 877,000 affected vehicles from what I understood in the last number. So I don't want to be in a situation, even if there's an engine failure in a parking lot, I don't want my family stranded somewhere in a parking lot. I'd bite the bullet and get a rental car, not a 6.2 Tahoe or anything, but I would get another car. You can't trade it in because there's a stop sale on them, so the dealers aren't going to buy them from you. You can't sell it to a dealership anyway. And if you sell it to a private party, they can't do anything with it either. They need an engine too. So the reality is right now everybody is stuck with a car that they shouldn't be driving, with an engine that's a ticking time bomb, and it's a safety recall due to loss of propulsion. So if you lose your engine, then you lose power brake assist, you lose power steering assist, you lose a lot of things that people need to operate the car. Yes, you can turn the car off and steer it off the side of the road, and you do have some brake, but you don't have any assist. So if you are a weak-bodied person, for any reason, no shade on anybody who can't, stand on a brake pedal and provide 100 pounds of force, that's not an easy thing to do. And it's especially not an easy thing to do in an emergency situation. So unless you feel you're competent enough to pilot a vehicle that no longer has propulsion, I would advise against driving the vehicle. It's just not the best thing for everyone involved. Now, the Tahoes, the Silverados, and the Yukons, if you've got a 5.3 or any of the other engines in those platforms, you're not affected. So no worries there. It seems to just be the 6.2 liter, okay? So if you've got one of the different engines, then you're not affected. It's not gonna be a problem. But for the 6.2 people, I would advise against driving the car. I've made a couple mentions on this topic, this recall, and on GM specifically over the past week or so. And the commenters in the videos have noticed that I'm not being very nice to GM. In fact, I'm reading between the lines with what they've said and what they've done very heavily. And the reason I'm not being very nice is because we're running 020 oil. And when the recall first came out, GM said, okay, we're just gonna switch to a 040 oil, which is gonna be a thicker oil. Well, my problem with that is GM's been recommending 020 for years. And if 020 was the cause of the engine failures, or is a contributing cause to these engine failures, then that means that GM's R&D department knows that the 020 is not really the appropriate oil for this specific platform with this specific engine under the conditions that they've gone to market under. And if they knew that it was a 020 issue, or the 020 was not the best oil, then that means that they were selling us vehicles that did not have an oil that was installed that was engineered for the longest possible longevity, meaning that oil was installed in order to meet CAFE emission standards, because thinner oil takes less horsepower to pump around. That's less parasitic draw in the engine. Therefore, that's less fuel that the engine has to burn just to be turned on. Therefore, it's going to burn less fuel across its entire performance range. And if you multiply that by 877,000 units, you can check the box for an environmental impact, meaning you've met some CAFE standards. So now you either don't have to pay the carbon offset tax or fine, or you get some kind of tax credit from I'm not sure how it works, but I do know that there are EPA mandates in place for fuel economy CAFE numbers, and one of the strategies used was thinner oil. So it either comes down to GM was knowingly installing not the ideal oil. I won't say the wrong oil, but they were knowingly installing an oil that was not ideal for longevity, meaning they knew that these engines were not long for this world and that they would eventually fail a premature death and then have to be replaced. And in most people's situations, that means you have to replace the car, because people aren't going to buy $12,000 engines outside of warranty. They're just really not. It's not a common thing. So that means you trade the car and get another car. So that's good for GM because now they're selling more units, but it's bad for the environment because now we're just producing more vehicles. And the reality is the emissions production on a new vehicle is going to far exceed the emissions use through that older vehicle burning fuel. So I don't think that we looked at it at the big picture scale. I think we looked at it at a macro level. And on a macro level, or even a political level, it makes sense to check the boxes for CAFE emission standards and fuel economy standards without having to pay the penalty of not meeting those standards. And you know, that's the reason why we don't get to have 2,000-pound mini trucks anymore. Do you guys remember the S10s and like the Isuzu Troopers and the Ford Rangers, those itty bitty little econo box pickup trucks? They were utility vehicles. They did great. We actually no longer produce those because the weight class that those vehicles were categorized in did not allow the manufacturers to produce power plants moving forward through emission standards. We couldn't produce power plants that met the requirements because of the weight class. So what we've done is we built heavier and larger vehicles, and now we move those vehicles into a different weight class bracket, which falls under a different tier of emission standards. And that's why we have trucks that used to weigh 4,600 pounds. They're now tipping the scales at 6,600, 700, 800, 7,000 pounds even. There's also an incentive to produce vehicles that large, because if you're a business, like an auto shop, for example, and let's say I want to go ahead and get myself a, I don't know, a courtesy shuttle, okay? I can get a better tax break by buying a larger vehicle than I can by buying a smaller vehicle. So I have an incentive to purchase that larger vehicle, and those larger vehicles are out in mass because those incentives are there in the tax law for the consumers to want to buy a larger vehicle. Do you ever see the videos where someone's like, hey, my accountant said I need to go buy a new car, and they pull up the Land Rover dealership and they buy 2 Land Rovers and pay $200,000 cash? I know this is a hypothetical and it's like a spoof scenario, but there are videos out there of people doing that because they can get a tax credit for vehicle purchases, because that's an expense. It's a business expense. So they buy these remarkably expensive vehicles, but they're buying them as trucks, and those trucks are over a certain weight class. They get the better tax break by buying the bigger and heavier vehicle as opposed to the smaller vehicle. So as a consumer and as a business, we're incentivized to buy larger vehicles. The manufacturers are incentivized to produce larger vehicles because that puts them into a different emissions tier. And all of this is under the umbrella of climate change or global warming or pollution, things like that. But the reality is, if you follow the money, you can realize very quickly that we're not making moves as a society that actually implements those changes, because all we're doing is shuffling paper around and checking boxes. And I think that's why we can't have those smaller vehicles. And I think that's why GM was incentivized to use 020 oil, when the reality is a 040 or a 530 or a 540 was going to be the better option towards the longevity of their product. But I don't think that the OEMs are focused on product longevity and quality control. I think they're focused more on checking the boxes for the tax credits. Now, before we get to go all re on me, that's not a political statement. I'm not planting a flag. I'm just saying that's my opinion gathered over a couple decades of watching this stuff happen, wondering where the S10s went to, wondering why the Colorados got bigger, wondering why the Ford Rangers are bigger, wondering why the Maverick turned into a pickup truck. I'm looking at all of these things, and it all points to CAFE emission standards. If you follow the money back from there, you can start to see the trail of incentive, which has put us in the position that we're in. Politics did put us here, and unfortunately we're in a bad position now where these politics have put nearly 1 million people into a big question mark with regards to the vehicle that they purchased, because now they can't use it, they can't drive it, they can't sell it, and they still have to make the payments on it. So effectively, we all got the shaft on thinner oil, and that is why I'm coming across as just a wee little bit bitter on GM on this one, because they sort of they showed their hand on this one, because they can't be both. They can't just be just the oil or just the engine. I think there's a combination of factors here. And I'm upset with GM because they tried to kick the can down the road like they did with the AFM lifter problem and the DOD delete lifter problem, which is still a problem to this day. And I don't think they tried to address the situation when they were first aware of it. The reality is these 6.2s have been blowing up for a lot longer than 21 to 24, but we have not done anything to kind of address that situation yet. So there's been a lot of people that have been out of a lot of money and a lot of inconvenience and a lot of time, and it's because of poor product and quality control and probably poor engineering. And on top of that, we're factoring in EPA and government incentives on both ends of the spectrum. And I think we've just created this perfect storm, and that's why we're in the position that we're in regarding the automotive community. Now, you can agree with me, you can disagree with me. Like I said, this is just my opinion. That's how I feel about it. And that's where my conclusions have landed me based on the evidence that I have witnessed and seen. And I'm not the authority on this. I'm not from the government. I'm not from GM. I'm just some guy that has a YouTube channel and a shop in Bradenton, Florida. So take that for what it's worth. But at the end of the day, the document speaks for itself. The vehicles are not safe to drive, and GM is taking action on it. But that doesn't change the fact that what has happened. And I think that the best part about this is going to be the awareness that's going to come, and perhaps at some point we can see a change in what the CAFE standards. Hey, look at here, man. I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone, bro. I'm on the phone. I was being super serial. I was on the phone, and then you came up pulling a Justin. What is this? Come on, man. No, I'm not kidding. A couple weeks ago, I wasn't here one day, and this is what he was in the shop doing. He pulled his car in here, and oh, you found his Instagram? Oh, let's pull up the video. I'm gonna show you guys the video what Justin was doing when I wasn't here. Okay, I guess that's my cue. I have nothing else to get off my chest on the GM recall thing. I'm hoping they get this all handled and they can smooth this over with their customer base, the ones that are left. And I hope that moving forward, we can start building quality engines that last and quality vehicles that last, because I don't like watching people finance piles of garbage. So that being said, I have nothing more. Cassie's laughing at me. I got nothing more to offer you guys in this particular video. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. Down in this video's description, I will leave links to all of the sources that I took some footage from. I got some video from Derek, and there's a couple shots in there from Eric at I Do Cars. I'll leave links to their channels. You guys can go over there and check them out. If you would, lean over on Derek's channel a little bit. He's trying to rebuild it. Like I said, he shut his down once upon a time, and I think he makes really good content. So if you would, head over there, check out one of his videos, give him a like and a subscribe, comment down there and said Ray sent you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.